Today I'm going to talk about how a story can change your life. But let me warn you, I'm not a storyteller in traditional sense. In fact, my family has been in business for the last 3 generations. My father, on the other hand, had a knack of producing Bengali films back in the early 70s. His first film is called Titash Ekti Nodi Nam. It's a milestone in Bengali film history. In the last 4 decades, he has produced films like Poda Nodir Majhi, More Manush, Shankochil, and over 30 films. And he produced his films doing business full time. So he had an enduring love for making films, and perhaps that influenced me as I was growing up. And I grew up watching and loving films, but I never pictured myself making a film. But I did that in 2013. So this part of the story it happens between middle of 2012. I was working for a bank, and I was contemplating a career change. I did round of interviews. In fact, I interviewed with Goodall, did 4 rounds of interviews, but I couldn't land a job, just like Munsuru. But I gave myself about 6 months. I decided that if nothing comes good out of it, I will go back to Bangladesh. Going back to Bangladesh was not the hardest decision, but figuring out what I want to do next with my life in terms of my career was something of a big of a challenge. So January 2000 following year, I packed my bags. I headed home with my family, and I moved in with my parents. And if you have done that, you know it's a big challenge. It's a huge change for me and my family. And I was conflicted, and I had self-doubt about whether I made the right decision leaving the banking industry. Anyway, on the 3rd day of my returning to Dhaka, I attended a startup event called Startup Weekend. And on that day, I knew what I was going to do. Because when I came back, I was in a life, I was stage in my life that I just turned 40, and I wasn't sure where my life was heading in terms of my career. But I was sure about one thing, is that I didn't enjoy banking. But on that day in January, I knew what I was going to do, and it was, I want to be part of this tech revolution in Bangladesh that was happening. So you have to imagine for a second, this is 2013, and 3G just launched. We had BD jobs, but we haven't heard about Patao or Chaldal.com. In fact, when we spoke about startups, nobody understood what startup is. But in that January morning, in that cold morning, I saw these young kids going up on stage, probably pitching for the first time in their life, sharing ideas, and they were talking about solving problems of everyday Bangladeshi faces in their daily life, and they were saying that they're going to solve that through technology. And it was amazing to see, and it was inspiring to see that. When I looked at them and I saw the energy, and there was excitement, and it was contagious. The excitement was contagious. And it was slightly chaotic, but the room was full of energy, and this energy was about change. And they were talking about changing Bangladesh. And it was amazing. So I left the event inspired, and I attended several more startup events, and I realized that nobody was talking about this startup movement that was happening in Bangladesh. I thought that I believe that just writing about it is not going to change anything, because what we are dealing with was so new, it was so different. You actually had to show it to people. And I thought to myself that maybe I should make a documentary. And I was planning this idea, and when my wife found out that I was thinking about making a film, the first question she asked, where are you going to get the money to make this film? So I shared this idea about making a documentary out of startups with few people, and they got super excited. And we're saying that since we're going to talk about startups, why don't we use crowdfunding? And again, crowdfunding was not a familiar concept. You put up a project, people actually give you money for it, and that's what crowdfunding is. So we thought that if we really believed in the idea, if people really believed in the idea of what we're doing, people will back us. So with that thought, we made a project. We made a target of raising $8,500 US dollars, and then we put up this project in a crowdfunding platform called Indiegogo. So after we put up this project online, I started filmmaking. And by the way, I have no clue how to make film. Even though we are fundraising, it was not a lot of money. In fact, I couldn't hire a director or a scriptwriter or a cameraman. In fact, I hired a student called Imtiaz, who happened to be here today taking photographs, and his friend, who were actually studying at that time in their university. And I actually found them at YouTube, because I found their work in YouTube. I contacted them, and they were happy to come on board. So with my crack tick in place, I became the writer, the director, and the producer. So my job was to get up, do the daily schedule of the interviews, go out, do the actual shoot with the help of my guys. And then on my spare time, I used to do the Facebook marketing to promote the film and raise money. And it was a full-time job. And it was a painful experience, because I've never done this. So after 45 days, we were able to raise about $9,000, slightly over our target. So as I was making the film, it was quite apparent that this is something that was way beyond our capacity. I made plenty of mistakes. There were times when we went to the shoot, the camera didn't work. When we did the shoot, came back and look at the footage, the sound wasn't there. That means we had to do reshoots of these interviews. That means very expensive in filmmaking. And after all the shoot was done, I was left with 4 terabytes of footage. I don't know if you have any idea, but that's a huge file. So I have to go through all the video clips and actually stitch a story out of it. And it was a very daunting task. So anyway, there was a time when, in the editing phase, that, especially on the last stage of the editing, I only got about 5 hours of sleep in 2 days. And I felt at one stage that I'm never going to finish this project. Maybe a lot of filmmakers feel the same way. So after almost 4 months of shoot and editing, I finished the project and I put it up in YouTube. And the response was amazing, and it was inspiring. So this is what happened. So people like Kishwar, he said, Startup Dhaka documentary was a catalyst and inspiration for me to return to Bangladesh and get involved in the startup ecosystem. So people like Kishwar, actually, there were hundreds of people who came up to me, emailed me saying, because we watched the Startup Dhaka documentary, I decided to leave my job or start a business. And I thought it was fantastic and inspirational. And I think that's what a good story does. It inspires you. It makes you believe to do something that you thought was impossible. In fact, even though when I was making the film and I thought at some point that I was never going to get this done, it was painful, but at the same time, it was a very humbling experience because people were so generous with their time and money. Without their support, I would not been able to finish it, but I was able to do it. So for me, the film was about reimagining Bangladesh because I thought I could tell the story of Bangladesh and the opportunity that it had to offer. I refused to see this country with the prism of despair. I refused to see it. What I did, I wanted to tell a story that a strong Bangladesh, the opportunity that we offer, and I thought through technology, we could leave free a frog and actually create economic progress and be our own captain and redefine our future. So when I look back, even though I was not trained as a filmmaker, I was able to jump into this project and did this anyway. And I did this because of technology. Technology became accessible and affordable compared to last 10 years. I was able to use email and Facebook to reach out to people for the interviews, kind of cold calling. I used a crowdfunding platform to raise money. I used cheap DSLR camera to make this film. And then I used YouTube to distribute my film. So in the age of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, any person has a decent chance to tell the story. And so you never know how a story is going to change someone's life, because it surely has changed mine. Thank you.